Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sasha Starr, and today we have a modern investing with our guests, Dr. Milan Somberg. Welcome to the show.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Great to have you. And Jim Eid from Eid Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Sasha. It's always great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you and to have your input on what's happening in the market. Of course, all eyes and ears and everything is now on NVIDIA, which is continuing its spectacular run. But I'll tell you, I'm heavily involved in NVIDIA, and not only stock it by itself, but of course all options associated with stock, but also some um, I would say, new opportunities which flourished in the last several months is the so-called yield max funds, and one of them is NVIDIA. The symbol is NVDY. It's paying spectacular dividends that probably in a year you can score almost or maybe even more as all money you invested in this fund. I'm been there now for several months, and there were some incredible dividends a couple of months in a row. They had well over $2 per share. So if what it's now, it's worth what, $25 or so. In 1 month, you're getting 10% of it. It's spectacular. Last month, it was $1.35, which is still awesome. And this month, today is the last day, by the way, when you can still buy it and get dividends. And you know what I did though? I decreased my position today. Not much. I had 12,000 shares. I decreased it to 12,000. I decreased it to 10,000. So I still have 10,000. And if it's true, the rumors are that they will pay $1.40. So $1.40, we are talking about $14,000, and that's not so shabby. And but we'll see. Now, remember one thing, that while today is declaration day, so tomorrow is the deal is closed, and by Friday it's a payout day. We will get payment on Tuesday, because on Monday the market is closed. So on Tuesday, the money will be on the account. Now, you have to be mindful that at about the same amount that they will pay as dividends, the price of the underlying security will decrease at about the same amount, and
Sure.
sometimes more. Because you see, what's happening is that while they're doing all this cover call writing and they accumulate more and more and more cash, and all of a sudden one day all that cash going out to shareholders. So by the
Okay.
next day after the payout, they still have all their underlying securities that guarantee the cover call writing, but no cash, because all cash will be paid to shareholders. So then you might as well start accumulating cash. Or you know what? You can do nothing. You can just sit on it, and unless you, for some reason, you decided to sell, which probably wouldn't be a very wise decision, but sometimes people are forced to sell for various reasons. Maybe they have margin calls on some other securities that they have, so they have to free some cash. So everything is possible. But I haven't thought about doing that strategy. I was thinking about it. I didn't do it, but selling all of it today and start buying back in the next few days when stock will be depressed. But you know what? In case of NVIDIA, just NVIDIA, not other underlying securities in this yield marks family of funds. I'm not excluding the situations that NVIDIA, NVDY to be precise, will not go down, because the share price is now on a move higher, so they will collect even more money, cash for paying dividends. So in this case, there is no reason for it to going down But I'm playing with scenarios that it should, and probably it will, going down the same amount for the parent. At least that's how it normally works, usually. But what's interesting about YieldMax family of ETFs is that now they did two things recently. They separated them in four groups. Why?
Yes, I noticed that when I looked it up. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're paying now dividends not once a month, but once every 4 weeks. Which means there will be a month where they will be made two payments. So there is 13 payments a year instead of 12, which is very good. And now, on the other thing is, because there are four groups, you can select one security in each of the four groups and get paid every week. Can you imagine that? This is what I'm investigating right now, because there may be nothing else you can do. It's just collect dividends every single not even a month, every 4 weeks.
Sasha,
Yeah.
what's the difference between 4 months? 4 weeks and 1 month?
Great, it's great difference. This is between with the monthly payments, you get 12 payments a year. With the 4 weeks, you get 13 payments a year. That's all the difference. That's
enough.
you get, by doing virtually nothing, you just get one extra payment. What's wrong with that? What could be wrong?
Yeah.
That's absolutely spot
It'll
on.
even out over time, but it's one of the different strategies. And I noticed when I looked up the stocks that they were broken into four categories, and I don't know if each one of them is equally. I obviously just looked at it, so I don't know much about it. But it seems like one of them is dedicated to Europe. Is that one of the things that you're
No,
saying?
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, for example,
I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. I just looked at it.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. You see, with this, you have groups of ETFs. They have groups A, B, C, and D. Okay. The first is reporting group A. They already did it last week. The group B, where NVIDIA is, the reporting is going to be tomorrow. Okay. Then the week later, it will be group C, and another week later, group D. Now, if you want to be sort of like on a solid, safe side, so to speak, in group A, you will be attracted probably to TSLY, which is Tesla fund. The other notably is GOOY, to Google, and another one I would say TSMY, which is TSM. So these three stocks would be prime candidates, one of them at least, to have. On the group B, it's clearly NVIDIA, NVIDIA. On group C, I would select AMD, which is AMD based, and NFLY, which is Netflix based. I would select one of two, or maybe even both. There is also Microsoft is available. There is also Kony, which is Coinbase, but I wouldn't touch that one. It's a little bit, in my opinion, too risky, although I could be wrong. And finally, on group D, MicroStrategy is a very, very aggressive substance. I would say YQQ, okay, but I don't expect there to be huge dividends there. Amazon, okay, I would definitely look into that. And if you want to have real fun, then you can select SMCY, which is supercomputer. I don't know if you like this stock or not, but that's something else to consider. So if you select one, or maybe, well, depends on the amount of money you want to play with, you can select one, and in some cases two stocks, as not to be overcommitted to one entity. So you can select, say, maybe in one group, two stocks, and divide your money evenly between two. But it depends on your opinion. But as an idea, I really love it.
Yeah.
Every week.
Love
Here
dividends.
comes Friday, Monday, money on your
You
account.
like to get paid to hold stock, Sasha.
Then, if that works, then who needs S&P? Milo, maybe you need still S&P, or you
Well,
decided that this is better opportunity?
Well, interestingly, Apple now has enough cash on hand to buy out Disney World entirely plus Coca-Cola. Two companies, huge companies, and Apple has enough. Why is that? Why does the management of Apple feel that they should be in cash? Because the market is overvalued. Berkshire Hathaway has, I don't know, $277 billion in cash for the same reason. The market is overvalued. Now, picking individual stocks, which is what you're talking about here, and timing markets works in the short run and does not work in the long run. So we are against that. We talk about buying and holding the American market as a whole, as represented by an exchange-traded fund which tracks the S&P 500. So SPY happens to be the best one because it's the oldest, the largest, the smallest bid-ask spread. So
right.
that's what we talk about. You are talking about picking individual stocks. You know, there is what we call rules-based investing and judgment-based investing.
Could you explain it to us? What means?
Rules-based investing, here are the rules that we follow. We follow 6 rules. One is save. Without saving, the other 5 don't matter. The second one is do it yourself. You don't need somebody else to do it. You can do it yourself very simply and easily. The third one is buy the American market as a whole. No stock picking. The fourth one is buy and hold. No market timing. And the fifth one is adjust this buy and hold philosophy only when market movement changes it from your asset allocation, which should be 50-50, 60-40, 55-45. Doesn't really matter, just so long as you have a lot in cash most of the time. So,
okay. We have special guest today. Shaggy Latimer is a multi-billion-dollar fund manager. Used to be.
Used to be. I'm unemployed at the moment.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Now, since he lost all his money,
Yes.
and, now he is becoming an average investor. He can join our club.
losing money, like you might have done, Shaquille, losing money.
I haven't lost any money, Milan.
If you have,
I said I'm joking.
if you have the American economy as a whole as represented by an exchange-traded fund which tracks the S&P 500, only happens in the short run. As I mentioned previously, empires have a 100% failure rate, but the failure of the American empire is nowhere in sight yet. So hold the American empire, so S&P 500, by holding SPY, and you will lose in the short run, but win in the long run because markets fluctuate, and that's why you're going to lose. So what we have now, we changed our philosophy from a 50-50 asset allocation to having mostly SPY and having just enough cash on hand to buy groceries and pay the rent and to budget for a holiday or anything else like that. But otherwise, we're fully in the market because it allows us to sell covered calls and cash secured puts. For instance, this morning, with strike price of 573, a strike price of 573 was able to earn $213 on the day. And so we do that now every day. Now it's recently become possible to get involved with derivatives, with the market as a whole on a daily basis. That's quite recent.
That's great. Welcome to market timing.
Yeah, I call that hypermodern investing.
Well done.
That's it.
Milan, you said, help me out here. You said earlier that you think the market is overinvested, and then you're fully invested.
Fully invested.
Yeah. So, do you really believe that the market is overpriced if you're fully invested? You know, I would up my cash allocation if
like I said, like I said, Apple has enough cash on hand to buy Coca-Cola outright plus Disney World. Those two huge companies, Apple could buy them outright right now, but it isn't. It's holding cash because the management at Apple feels that the market is overinvested. So does Berkshire Hathaway, which has something like $277 billion.
But you don't personally because you're fully invested.
I'm fully invested except for the short-term needs. Because it allows me to sell covered calls and cash secure puts on a daily basis and make more money than I ever made before in the stock market. And I've been in.
So you can have every day for dinner a beef bourguignon or some other nice food because of the selling covered calls, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about groceries, so you can go a little beyond.
As a result of that, I have a very fancy bicycle.
Yes, that's great. But listen, still, I ask you already a couple of times, especially now, you should realize that all profits in SPY is coming from 7 stocks.
True. Oh, that's true.
Magnificent 7. So 493 stocks are doing virtually nothing. They're not contributing to anything.
That's true.
Okay, if you're following S&P 500, you probably know all the stocks which are part of S&P 500.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you have any stock or two that you believe will join Magnificent 7? So maybe in time, maybe there will be Magnificent 8 or 9. Do you have any candidates for that?
There probably are some. I don't have any because I don't pick stocks. Picking stocks is a winning proposition in the short term, but in the long term, it's a losing proposition.
Tell me, Milan, is 5 years is a long enough outlook for you, or it should be something like 20 years or 55 years? What's the right amount of time that you would believe something really works?
Yeah, it could be 20 years, but many of us won't be around 20 years from now, but our estate will be around. And we have to think about our estate rather than the short term.
But I'll tell you that in 5 years, I could go probably longer, maybe even to 10 years, but 5 years for sure, because I've been in the market very actively for the last 5 years, the Magnificent 7 stocks outperformed all the rest of 493 stocks by a mile. But it's incredible even to think if Nvidia makes 150% a year and S&P 500 will make 150% in 28 years. So how in your right mind you can suggest that you have to be
it depends on the investor. As I always say, you're both right. And if you don't want to pay attention to the market, something like Milan's strategy, I totally approve of it. But if you do want to be involved in tracking the market, seeing what's going on, trying to get ahead, for example, when the AI boom was just a whisper, I bought NVIDIA and I bought Taiwan Semiconductor stocks. Both of them this year have gone up over 80%. And the S&P 500 is setting, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's setting a new record today. It's gone up 1,000 points over the course of that year, which is nothing to sneeze at, especially if you don't want to track the market. If you're not interested, it's a wise way to proceed. But if you are interested, you are looking at things that can pay off far greater. And so why not? If you are interested in,
I'll tell you why not. I'll tell you why not, James. Both you and Sasha indicated that you're heavily involved in the market. It takes a lot of time to do what you are doing. Now, many of our members, this Monday Morning Millionaire organization that I run, we have about 300 people, and they're actively involved in their jobs. And so they make more money practicing dentistry or medicine or pharmacy or whatever it is than they will on a bit still at this point in their lives. If they
Absolutely. That's why I say you're both right. If you have the time and energy and you consider it fun, then by all means do it.
But I would like to emphasize, especially Shaquille, if you would agree with me, my investments are divided by core portfolio, which I haven't touched for the last 5 years. I haven't sold anything. I haven't bought anything. It's still there. I hate this, my core portfolio, but it collects good dividends, and it's just there. And I don't know why I need it, but it's there, and I don't.
I only look at mine
Now,
once in a while.
the fund portfolio, though, fund portfolio. That's what, as I said, I started the strategy 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, slightly less. I started it with 40,000 Canadian dollars. I just wanted to check out if it works or not. Believe it or not, I got to the point that it went up to $275,000. I already got out 40,000 regionals that I invested. So now I'm playing with the house money, and it keeps growing. It keeps growing, and I'm now thinking about get some more money in there. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Listen, Sasha, you're a genius when it comes to market investing. You're a Mozart when it comes to market investing. You realize that
I hate Mozart. He is
I agree.
a very mediocre composer. That's
So Sasha rings me one day and he says, "Hey, I want to have a chat to you." And he tells me the positions he's got on. I won't tell you everything he said, but he tells me the positions he's got. He shows me his portfolio. He tells me what he's doing. I'm like, Sasha, this is terrible. Don't do it like this. It's like, just look, do it a different way. You're taking too much risk. Just do it this way, And Sasha goes, yeah, but look at my returns. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I've got nothing I can say. And about 20 years ago, there was a guy, and he had a strategy where he sold naked puts on certain stocks in the S&P 500. I won't give you all these criteria. It's not relevant. And all of us looked at this and said, dude, this is such a bad idea. Look, cover the put. Just cover it this. Just do this.
Right.
And he's like, no, I'm not doing. You finance people, you know everything. I don't care. I'm doing it my way. I'm like, yeah, but dude, you take less risk. You can actually take a bigger position. No, I'm doing it this way. And the dude was, he was 80, I think, from memory, when he died, or in his 80s, still doing the same thing. And he said, every year for the last however long it was, 10 years, whatever, I've been making $40,000 a month. Okay, I can't argue with you. And one of the lessons I've learned is you can't really say to somebody else that they're wrong, and you can't look at the market and go, the market's wrong. Because the market's never wrong. You're wrong. You're the one losing money, right? The market's never wrong. And I can tell you, I'm always wrong. Bitcoin, I don't know why. I know, Jim, you didn't know me back then, but it's not the point. Why didn't you ring me 20 years ago when they told me I should buy some Bitcoin? I was like, what the hell is this thing? I'm not buying this. I can't remember how much it was, $10 or something. I can't remember what it was. There's no way I'm going to do it. When I was a teenager, gold was $300 an ounce. I remember when it got to 600 and 700, I went, oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, gold's not going to go up. The cost of extracting gold, refining gold hasn't gone up this much. Why would gold be this price? Absurd. Let's short the bloody thing. So I shorted it for about 8 days. Thankfully, I actually managed to make money out of my short. And thankfully, I got out of it. And, the last few years, people are like, I think gold could maybe get to 2,500, 5,000, something like that. I'm like, it's not going to 20. There's no way it's going to go 25. Maybe in 5 years from now, it'll go 2,500. Well, the other day it was at 2,800. So I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing. But here's the thing. I'll sort of like to address Milan's comments and the comments that you guys have made. Look, Milan, I think you're right in the comment that, hey, buy a broad index and sort of sit there and ride it out. Yeah, you're correct. I think, though, that for people that are doing that, there isn't really much difference between doing that and leaving your money in a pension fund or leaving your money in a sort of traditional, an insurance product or something like that, because that's pretty much what those guys do. So I think that people who want to get a higher rate of return need to do something a little bit more active. Now, it depends on what you're trying to do. The dogs are the Dow. They're the dividend-paying stocks in the Dow index. But actually, every time I've ever bought the dogs of the Dow, it underperforms the rest of the Dow. But if dividends are what you're after, okay. I think we've got to tailor things for ourselves. I think it also depends on what stage of life you're at. You know, I say to young people, they say to me, "Oh, I've got $10,000. What should I do? You know, should I put it into a mutual fund, or should I buy some shares and write some options and this and that?" I say, "Yeah, go do all the high risk stuff. If you're 20 years old, do the high risk stuff, because if you lose, who cares? It doesn't matter. You know, you're going to work, you're going to get the money back, you'll be fine, right? And you'll have learned something which will be valuable to you.
If you lose a minute, you will never get it back again. If you lose,
maybe that's true. But if you're older,
yeah.
But if you're older, am I going to say, yeah, risk it all, roll the dice, risk it all? No, of course not, right? Especially if you've got more money as well. So I do think it depends. And I think for both Sasha and Jim, if you're actively involved in the markets and you're looking for those strategies, for me personally, I tend not to pick individual stocks, because whilst I'm reasonably good at it, I tend to find myself picking sections of the economy. You know, I think the energy sector will outperform the tourism sector or whatever. I don't like touching techs because I don't get it. I try so hard. I don't get it. Tech's amazing, but Google, it's a bloody website. Come on. Like, I can't do it. I just cannot get my head around it. You know, Jim says to us a few years ago, live on air, he said, yeah, there's this new IPO called Snowflake, was it, Jim?
I think so. I can't remember now. Yeah.
Something, yeah. And I went and bought stock. And like 5 minutes later, closed the stock out for a $10,000 profit. It's like, yeah, cool.
It's a snowflake.
A snowflake or something that I would never ordinarily have done. I was watching it like a hawk too, because I think to make that sort of profit, I think I took $1 million position or something ridiculous. I better watch this and make sure it doesn't go wrong. But the point is, the way that I trade, I do like to use options. And even in the futures market, I do like to use options. Now, I'm not using options as a speculative tool. I'm using options to mitigate my risk. What I like about options is it gives you flexibility. And so it means that if a position that you like is going wrong for you, you can make adjustments to it using options, and you can sort of extract some money out of it. And when you've taken the risk out and all you've got is your capital, that's a really nice position to be in. For me, I like to leverage my positions a lot. So I do get a little bit jittery if I don't have at least 5 times my money in the market. I don't feel very happy about that. But the reason for that is because my risk is normally limited to around 6% of my account. Sometimes I'm a bit more aggressive, but the maximum I'll take as a risk is about 6% of my account on a position. And that would assume that I made no adjustments and the position went against me by the time the thing expired. Right. That's not going to happen because I'm going to adjust it. So, look, as I said, I think there are different strategies that you can use. And I get what you're saying, timing the market. How can you do it? You know, if you go back and look at the Great Depression, as I saw on a chart at the Bloomberg meeting I was at, and I was having a play with the terminal, I'd be very happy to have bought the index right at the top before it crashed in 1929. I'd be very happy to still own that index today. Obviously, you have to ride out the ups and downs, but I do think that you can slant your trades to different sectors. And the last thing I'll just say is, if you don't want to put the effort in to doing the analysis yourself, there are some really great ETFs out there, exchange-traded funds, that can give you exposure to certain sectors of the market, or even somebody like myself who still has access to institutional broking. I'm never, ever going to take positions in emerging markets debt. Not going to do it because it's too complicated, it's too hard. But absolutely, with a 17% yield, am I going to take an ETF that does that? Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to look at, you know, I got a structured product offered to me by HSBC Private Banking the other day, a capital guaranteed exposure across the Asian markets. I'm not overly confident in Asia, so you're going to capital guarantee me? Yeah, no problems. I'll put some money into that. So, yes, do it yourself. Rely on the advice you're getting from other people. But I think that to just take an outright position in the broad index, I think you can probably get higher returns than just that. That's my personal view.
I'd like to mention about options one very interesting thing which you are aware, I'm pretty sure, but I am not sure that it applies to options and futures. Maybe not, but at least on stocks and indexes, options are trading since 1973 on Chicago Board of Trades. Today we have 2024, so it's 51 years, 51 years data. which shows that it was only 1 year, 1987, the year of the crash, when the sellers lost to buyers of options. It's 1 year, the 50 years out of 51, the sellers always beating the buyers. Not on every transaction, mind you. Don't get my words the wrong way, but on average. So if you are in a business, and I analyzed everything what I was done in the last 2 years or so, I made my money on options, not on the stocks. I made my money on options. I was selling covered calls on NVIDIA. I was selling naked puts on NVIDIA. Few others, but very seldom. Mostly, almost, I'd say probably 75% of my trades was NVIDIA one way or another. And, because you every day involved with NVIDIA, and there are probably around 300 mutual funds and institutional investors, hedge funds, and so on. They own one way or another. They own NVIDIA. S&P 500 owns NVIDIA. Everything is NVIDIA. So the depth of the investment money that flowing into NVIDIA, especially as Milan, if you are right, and there's so much money on the sidelines, like Berkshire, Apple, and they're not alone. There are several hedge funds and mutuals. They have a lot of money on sidelines. So what do you think when it's all coming out, it's being revealed that there is an incredible demand on their new chips, Blackwell, that they're coming out the next couple of months?
And there is
huge. And even the president of the company, CEO Jensen, he said, how he worded as there is absolutely incredible demand on these chips, much more than they can produce. TSM, which is producing chips for NVIDIA, they had very good report, by the way, in the morning today. So if they are producing chips for NVIDIA and others, same Dina, for example, or so on, and they have very good report, what that means for NVIDIA, for example, that means that NVIDIA, which is struggling right now to supply the market, to supply the orders what they are getting, that's a spectacular, absolutely situation for.
And the Blackwell chips, what they're going to do, they're not going to. The old chips are still selling, and there's still great demand for them. So that revenue is still constant. So these Blackwell chips will be an ad. So NVIDIA's revenue is just going to go through the roof. And I pay attention to that. I mean, I still see just, I think we're not anywhere near the peak of the AI boom. It's going to go on for the foreseeable future, as far as I can ascertain. And what do I know? There's plenty of history I could tell you about my mistakes. But the idea, to back up what Milan is saying, is that I've been in all my portfolios, and I've had the Schwab 1000, but I treat it like my money market. I get better returns on that than I get on my money market. So it's not something that I have to pay attention to.
Do you realize, the three of you, do you realize that most investors in the stock market lose money? Do you know that?
It doesn't apply to four of us, though.
But Milan, let me say though, I think the couple of points I just want to make very quickly, Sasha. Look, I can't say anything negative about NVIDIA. I think the numbers look great. They've obviously done very well. I would just say to you, as I have said to you before, just be careful about not falling in love too much with the stock. I've done that before. You have to be mindful of that. I mean, I've got a few stocks that I just love, and it's everything I could do not to buy them sometimes. Just with options, you make the comment about selling options. Now, everybody says I'm a moron for this. I like to buy options. And I remember sitting there with a former floor trader for CBOE. I went up to Chicago to meet with him. And I told him some of my strategies of buying options. And he went, I don't think that works. I said, well, theoretically, efficient market theory would suggest that if you buy it at the money call and you sell it at the money call, that over time, both the call buyer and the call seller should break even. Theoretically, not reality, but in theory, it sounds good. For me, I like to buy options. The reason being is I'm happy to pay the theta. And the reason I'm happy to pay the theta.
You're buying options as insurance, aren't you?
I am, but even sometimes when I take a speculative position, I would generally do it with options. But for example, if I really like XYZ stock, and the stock's trading at $100, why would I type $100 of my money if I can buy the 90 call option for $12?
Yeah.
I'll buy that because then my risk is limited.
It's
Well,
you remind me a theory of a poor covered call writer. Because a guy is poor,
Yeah.
he cannot buy the stock. So he's buying, as you just said, 90. No, I'm joking. I know that it doesn't apply to you. But you're right. Sometimes you can buy.
Well,
For
I
example,
do a lot of pairs trading, and I like to trade the big four banks in Australia against each other.
Yeah.
And one of the best returns I actually made, which was 14% unlevered, right? And I had this thing levered 10 times. So I actually made 140% return risk on my risk capital in 8 days on this position. Because what had happened was that actually both positions went against, well, one of the positions went against me quite badly. The other one had performed reasonably okay. But the thing was that with the option, rather than taking a straight pairs trade, which would have meant that I would have made about 3% return unlevered, by taking the option, when the market dipped really badly, my loss was limited on the position that I'd gone long on, but I got the whole profit on the short position. And then what I did was I said, I'm fairly confident this market will turn around, so I'll take the profits off the table and I'll let this one go. And it bounced straight back up. It was a beautiful position. So I really like that flexibility with options, and I'm happy to pay the theta because it gives me the ability to be able to not look at the markets if I don't want to. Now, I always do look at the markets, can't help myself, but I don't have to. I know that if I am in a coma and I wake up in 3 months' time, the worst case scenario is that I will have paid some theta. My positions are going to be okay, and I like to have that. So you're absolutely correct that, yes, most options expire worthless. However, you don't necessarily know why those people have those options. A lot of those options are protective, or the options that were in profit, the people have closed those positions early and taken their profits off. So the options that are left that are expiring worthless are the ones that, well, why are you going to bother? What are you going to bother trying to do? You won't even cover your brokerage by selling them. So especially people that are taking spread trades, butterflies, condors, all that sort of stuff, they're not going to try to sell off their losing legs. If their profitable ones have made them with a profit, they'll just let the rest go. So look, it's horses for courses. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. I know that theta is really juicy and everyone loves it. But you know what? When you've got COVID and you've got an earthquake or a tsunami or a hurricane, right? The insurance companies are being hit with that at the moment. All of a sudden, you get an event that you weren't expecting. They're talking about potentially there being a solar storm next year that's going to knock out all the electrical wires and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if that's science fiction or if it'll happen, but I think that every year, every period of time, something unexpected happens. So I bank on the unexpected things happening rather than banking on things remaining normal and stable.
Well, that's smart. And I would suggest, Milan, rather than Apple and Berkshire Hathaway thinking that the market is overpriced, they might be waiting for the election. And because markets don't like uncertainty, and who knows what's going to happen in this election. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So depending on how it goes, I think they're going to be reinvested quite soon afterwards.
There is some feeling amongst the analysts at the moment that the US could be heading for a recession at some point next year, regardless of who wins this election. And largely that'll be them trying to pull some money out of the market.
I've been hearing that for a long time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I've been hearing that the Australian property market is overpriced, and I've been saying that since I was a teenager. And reluctantly, I've bought properties because it ain't going anywhere quickly. But one of the things that that does give me some pause for thought over the short term, over the long term, America is going to be fine. Is I've started hearing reports that Blackstone has started selling investment properties, residential properties that they own as part of their portfolio in Florida. Now, is that because the Florida market has increased so much because of the migration of people from New York to retire down in sunny Florida, or is there some other structural issues in the United States? That is a concern, but again, that doesn't mean you pull out of the market. You just try to go to safety a little bit. The other thing I would say to people is don't be afraid to look at the futures markets. For me personally, I've really fallen in love with interest rate derivatives. I think they're much more predictable. It's great trading, very, very deep and liquid markets. It's the most liquid in the world, arguably, other than the FX markets. So, don't be afraid to look for other types of investments to really get that yield and to get that return on your money.
Thank you
Agree.
for that, Bill.
The beauty of, first of all, I would like to admit that I sometimes do buy options. And when it's happened is, I had, in the last few days, I had a lot of shares of NVIDIA and I sold covered calls. In the last few days, I bought them back. Some of that at profit, some of them at loss, but I closed all my protective covered call positions because I saw that NVIDIA will continue to climb up to, I think the next target is definitely $150. So it's going to happen fairly soon, maybe next couple of weeks. That's almost there. And then next target is $200 a share. That's probably
And then they could do another stock split.
I guess exactly.
and you know the strategy.
But here's my question for people though, and for you, Sasha.
Yeah.
Fair enough if you already own the stock, sell calls over it. But if you're creating the position, why not? Yeah, the poor man strategy. Why not just buy a call and buy a long-term 12-month expiry call, and then sell short-term calls against it instead of buying stock?
That's an idea. That's an idea. I have no problems with that. You know what? You see, because I've been in NVIDIA for a long time, and you know what? When you are in the same stock for a long period of time, say a couple of years, like I did, you almost feel the direction of the stock even during the day because they're almost the same people trade stock back and forth.
Yeah.
Also, one day I felt I really want to do something exciting. What it could be. Okay, so I went up, I had a good cup of coffee, then I played piano, and then I came to the computer, and I started to think, okay, so what should I do? I looked at NVIDIA, it's going straight up as usual, and I decided to sell 500 shares from my holdings. So, and I didn't bother with the call, so I left myself for a certain period of time, very short one, just 30 minutes. I left myself with the naked calls instead of covered calls. But I sold the shares. Stock stayed the same. Then it went down a couple of dollars, and I bought back these 500 shares. So I made an insane profit on that, and in a matter of half an hour. And it's not the money that I worry about that I made. It's the fact that something what I want to do for a long period of time, and I was shy of doing that because, okay, you're leaving yourself unprotected. You have now naked calls, and the video will run to $250, and you will be wiped out, and that's it. And then you're gonna do what you wanna drive, Uber or whatever.
You did a good job when I was in Canada. You did a great job of being my Uber driver and my tour director. So
Well,
You need Uber drivers.
I could be a good driver because I know the city, Shaquille, very well, and so on.
But Shaq, I wanted to say something about the Blackwell selling in Florida. I think it's a wise move, but I think it's Florida specific because there's the hurricanes have just been coming. These once in a 500 years storms are becoming routine now. And I think people that are just fed up and they're leaving Florida for that. Now, I say that because in California, people, we now have an exodus. When it used to be that people always moved to California, people are leaving now because of the prices of the homes. That just the cost of living here is too expensive. Yeah. So it's state specific sometimes. People are going to places where it's more affordable to live, and certain places in Florida now are just perceived to be dangerous. And you don't want to be wiped out and rebuild, even if insurance pays for it. You don't want to go through it. People have gone through it multiple times, and they're done with it.
And Jim,
remember, I think it is
insurance is not in a hurry to pay you. It will take you a couple of years before you'll get even one penny.
Oh, no. My heart goes out to anyone having to deal with that.
I'll tell you. I have a few friends. Just a moment, finish Florida. I have a few friends who have condos in Florida. I visited them a couple of times or so on. To me, it's a worst possible investment that you can make. I'll tell you why. Okay, so you want to enjoy while it's pretty cold in Toronto in the winter time. So, of course, Florida. Okay, so you come into Florida. First of all, you have to get there. So you have to fly or you have to drive or whatever you want to choose. Then when you're staying there, you have to go out to do the shopping and prepare your meals. And so it's becoming kind of a life similar to what you have here in Toronto, but with a warmer temperature. But how warm is that temperature? Most of the times during the winter time, you can't even swim in the ocean because the water is too cold, and sometimes it's windy, and sometimes it's here and there. So if you're going on holiday to Florida, it's a very dicey proposition that will cost you several $1,000s anyway. So why don't you go for 2 weeks, all inclusive, 5 stars, Aruba?
I knew Aruba was coming to come into it.
I will say I will back up what you're. I will back up what you're saying there, Jim. I do have some concerns about the Florida property market, especially in, but maybe less so in Fort Lauderdale, but yeah, especially in Miami and those sorts of places, those real sort of touristy hot spots right on the beach and that sort of thing. Also, I think that they are looking for yield, and one thing that the liberal in me comes out. A lot of the private equity companies now are buying the what do you call them? The RV homes, caravan parks, whatever you call them.
Right.
And so those mobile home parks. Well, they're not that mobile. Those homes can't be moved. But what they're doing is they're buying them up, and they're actually increasing the rent. And I saw a thing on it the other day, and this woman is like, I've got nothing. I've worked my whole life, and these greedy people are taking the little bit that I've got left. And what am I going to be? I'm going to be left on the street. What am I supposed to do? Now, private equity is actually acting properly as a capitalist in the capitalist world. This is so inhumane. I couldn't do it. I personally, I just got. You can't to take advantage of poor people like that. But unfortunately, that is where a lot of the money's going. And now private equity. I mentioned this the other day to some of my investment banking friends in Europe, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we've actually had private equity groups approach us here and say, hey, do you want in on this investment? Because guess what? It's a juicy 20% yield." And the yield gets increased because they can increase the prices. And I'm like, no, you can't do this to people. It's so wrong. But that's unfortunately why I think you're going to see some sector rotation out of things like the real estate market and into other types of investments. And the biggest returns, as we all know, is anything that services people at the bottom, because they're the ones you can charge the most to.
Shakil, I mentioned that on the earlier program, the World Edition, but I'd like to remind you, yesterday on the show, there was Adam Lamparella. He's a lawyer. He's based in Atlanta, I think.
He's down in Georgia at the moment, but he's from New Jersey, I think, or he was living in New Jersey.
Yeah, that explains everything.
He's a fantastic guy. I love him, except 2 things. Number one, he loves Putin, and every day he's listening to a Russian national anthem. But I think
he's trolling you somehow, Sasha.
I know that. And second of all, of course, he is going to vote for Trump, which is fine to me. And I asked him then, okay, Trump, you are doing the wrong thing. Everybody who's voting for Trump and want him to win, you are talking about 2 things. One is economy and another one immigration. Economy is booming. The stock market is booming. Everybody is so happy like never before in history.
Wages are going up.
So why you're operating with clearly losing issues? Number one. Number 2 is immigration, which was illegal and legal. So first of all, U.S. needs people. So I see nothing wrong with immigration, because all of them, even illegal, most of them are hardworking people. There are a few rapists.
All immigrants.
There are a lot of white rapist U.S. citizens as well. So that's not an issue, but U.S. needs people. But then I'm asking him, so why don't you concentrate on one thing where Trump is indeed very strong? It's a foreign policy. If you play this card, Trump really can win election. But Trump, it seems to me, he cannot even articulate that his advantages in foreign
policy.
policy.
Well, he's never started a war.
So what Adam replied? He said, wait a sec, forget about foreign policy or so on. I spent now more than $1,000 for groceries. That's my problem now. I said, wait a moment, where are you doing your shopping? He says, at Kroger. Okay, Kroger, symbol KR, Kroger. Okay, have you ever seen on the stock price of Kroger and dividends what they're paying? They are doing that thanks to people like you. So, what Democrats or Republicans have to do with the prices that Kroger is charging its customers? It's
Well, yeah,
doesn't
Who
matter.
will then you pay it?
so
I
you're
would
always
stop
going to
there.
blame the government. You're always going to blame the government. And I think, and Jim's going to try his hardest here to keep a straight face, I think you have to remember that Donald Trump did say that he is, I can't even say it myself.
Well, you
And
may have-
Milan, just so you know, I actually like Donald Trump. I think that he will be the better president. If I'm given a choice, I'm open about that. I do think he'd be better for the country, but that's just my view. I know that people don't agree with me. That's just my opinion. I'm not American, so who cares? But Jim, Donald Trump has said that he will be the great defender of women.
I know. I know. And he also predicted if he lost in 2020, the stock market would crash.
Shaquille, I'll tell you this: when you're right, I agree with you, but when you are wrong, I cannot. So Harris is leading now Trump overall by several percentage points, and there's a very good chance that a next American president will be a Black American woman.
Let's hope so.
Look. There's every possibility of that, and I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying I don't want her to be the president. That's not what I'm saying. If I could vote in America, I think I would vote for Donald Trump for a number of different reasons that other people don't agree with, and that's fine. The question for me as an investor is, what is the likely effect on the market? Now, I think that part of the reason why you're starting to see commodity prices go up a bit at the moment, a little bit of a rush to safety, not too much,
Right.
but a little bit of a rush to safe
I
assets,
agree with that.
is not because people think that Trump or Harris is going to win, because they don't know. Because the betting markets are flipping up and down.
Yeah.
And if you look at the polls, some polls say that Harris is in the lead. Other polls say Trump's in the lead. Then they try to average the polls. And then people say, well,
Which
that
is
poll's
big.
flawed and this poll's flawed.
Yeah.
And you sit there and go, look, how is anybody supposed to know? So I believe he's going to win. That's how I read the numbers, but I'm no clairvoyant. So
Shaquille,
if the market...
you know that Trump is a liar. You know that.
I don't want to get into a political debate. I like we do that on other shows. As far as the markets are concerned, if the markets did have a recession or did have a crash, when I say it doesn't affect me, that's very sad for the United States. That's horrible for the US. However, I can trade the markets to fall. The markets stay still, I can trade the markets to slide sideways. The markets go up, I can trade the markets to go up. So from an investment perspective, I don't really think it matters too much. I actually believe that under either of those two presidents, that you will see an increase, a continuing increase in the overall size of the economy. I base that on two things: that they have different policies. I think that'll affect different sectors of the economy differently.
Right.
You know that the analysis at the moment from the it wasn't the Fed, but I think it was the Treasury. They've predicted that the size of the US economy will hit 50 trillion over the next sort of 10 or 15 years. It's hard to get a 15-year prediction correct,
Yes.
but the current trajectory, yeah, that looks feasible. That looks realistic. Could there be some inflation? Yes, there could be. Even if inflation is relatively low, you're going to see prices of assets go up. So, yeah, I do think the US is great. The question is, will the US outperform other markets? I'm not sure that you want to go where the real growth is, which is emerging markets. You don't really want to do that. You want to be fairly stable. So you just have to be a little bit careful about where you're putting your money. But as I said, my opinion on who is likely to win and who's better or worse in the United States is completely irrelevant. I'm one person and I don't get to vote anyway. So who
It comes
cares?
down to a matter of decency for me. You know, we know that the guy is not a decent human being. And so you have to reflect on yourself. Do I want a person who is not even decent in any stretch of the imagination being the president, being the face to our foreign allies? And what his foreign policy is, he has no policies, man. It's what is good for him. And, you know, it's not a political statement. It's a reality. The guy is just bootlicking to dictators and autocrats. He's a wannabe dictator. And we should be aware of that. You know, he's shown us what he is. And I guess we can just say that he can fool some of the people all of the time. And, you know, but people who are paying attention, know what he's like. New Yorkers knew what he was like first, and it's just appalling to me that he's even the Republican candidate, that he's the nominee. The Republicans
I
will
wish he wasn't.
retain my prior respect as soon as they get rid of the mega extremists, and not until then, because they have taken. You can't say there's extremists on both sides. Of course, there's always been, but they have been taken over by the extremist side. And the moderate Republicans can't win primaries now. So
I wish that he wasn't the nominee. I wish that the Republicans had a different candidate. But on the same token, I also wish that Harris is. What's different? Based on character, I'm prepared to accept that Kamala Harris is as a better character. As I said, my assessment, though, because I don't live there and I don't have to deal with the everyday, in your face what he's done,
the fact is,
I can only assess it on
down now. The inflation has come down.
Trump's problem is that he was not born in Australia, because if you are born in Australia, then he would become Australia Prime Minister. He would be there for 55 years. You would vote for him once you reach certain age, and you would keep voting for him until you're 90 years old or so. But
that's very interesting, because in 2016, and that was the first time I went to the United States when Obama was the president. In 2016, I definitely wouldn't have voted for him. I can tell you categorically I wouldn't have voted for him based on what I knew about him at the time, and I really didn't think he had any chance of winning. So there's no way that I would have voted for the man. And also, I actually like Hillary Clinton, and I actually think that she would make a good president. I think her chance is gone now. I don't think she's going to have a chance to come back and have another go. But I actually really did think that she would be a good president. You can't change.
This election in U.S. is unique in a way that people who will vote for Kamala, they all hate Trump. And people who will vote for Trump, they all hate Kamala. So it's not Trump. So, of course, there are exceptions. I agree.
The problem is that, from what I'm gathering from my very good Republican friends in America, is that half the voters that are voting for Trump hate him as well. Anyway, so God bless you, America, because you bloody need it. I'm glad for the moment that I'm not there. So
that's what I hear too from my Republican friends. And it's time to stand up and be counted. Your vote matters, and I do believe that the effect on the economy won't be dramatic, and the effect on the markets won't be dramatic. Whoever gets elected, but the effect on our peace of mind and our ability to get along with one another will be. And
as it's an investment show, sorry, did I cut you off? Sorry.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
As it's an investment show, one thing that I will be watching very closely, again, under either of those two candidates, is what foreign policy is going to look like. Now, I don't want to get into a debate about this specific part, but Donald Trump obviously has insisted that European nations contribute more to NATO, which I actually think is reasonable. They should be contributing more to it.
It's been done since the beginning of the war of Ukraine. It's been done. Now they're contributing way much more than America.
Sure, and that's not as criticism. It's just a comment. So what I'd like to look at there is what is going to happen with things like the European economy. If Trump gets in, he's talking about being a lot more isolationist. How is that going to affect trade internationally? What effect is that going to have on manufacturers elsewhere? And also, what effects is that going to have on exports? Because when a country penalizes everybody or tariffs everybody who brings goods in, that's going to have a direct effect on your exports. So that's going to be
strategically used. And
absolutely.
That's nonsense. That's going to balloon the foreign debt. It's national debt. And
so I'm going to
catastrophic for the average consumer.
So I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to things like the euro dollar. Now, the euro dollar is US dollars held by non-US banks. So I'll be paying a lot of attention to the yields there. Also very notable that Japan's had some issues. Japan's a major holder of US debt. They've actually started to sell off some of their portfolio. Now, you can read that a number of ways. Is that because they don't like the future of the US, or is it because they need the money? I think it's a combination of both. Yeah. But you also have to recognize that the US, as the world's reserve currency, is a strong and safe currency. A lot of countries around the world buy US debt as a safe place to put their money until they need it.
Absolutely.
And so if we start to see events that affect countries, they will start to rush out to get their money. But that means they're going to rush to the United States and say, hey, we're cashing in our debts. And that could have some effects. I think that those are all things at a macro level that when you're investing, you just have to pay attention to some of those international movements of money and what countries are doing.
Well, you know, the idea, the baby boomers are starting to retire, and we're going to have fewer people supporting an older population. That's already happened in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
That's for a long time. Yeah.
and so they are hurting, and they do need money, and there's no question about it. So that's an isolated case in my view, and I don't think it has anything to do with their confidence in the U.S. dollar. I think
Jim, maybe Japan
remains.
needs more illegal immigrants to cure this problem. What do you think?
Well, the California economy relies on people that are undocumented to come in and do the work that the people that live here won't.
Are you looking for any unemployed hedge fund managers?
You're right about the California economy, James. You know, you're talking about illegal immigrants. California agriculture alone is bigger than Canadian agriculture, and half of the people working there are illegal immigrants. You could not have a California agriculture operating the way it is now without illegal immigrants being there.
Well, undocumented workers, but in any case, your point is correct. The economy relies on it, and the California economy is the 8th largest in the world. So, and we feed most of the rest of the country. So, you know, I don't think.
According to the Republicans, if they were in charge of California, it'd be the 3rd largest in the world. This is the problem in politics. That's why, to be honest, I know we get into politics on a lot of our shows. I don't really have particularly strong and passionate
It's easy to hate on California, but I think buy all our products.
Well, I spend most of my time in California or the US because all my friends and family live there. Well, most of my friends and family live there. But look, I think
in New England. I'm in California now.
but I think that you have to look at those movements of money. You have to look at economic effects and stuff like that. And I suggest to people, and I know it's very hard, especially if you're American, but try not to let politics weigh you down too much. Sometimes you get results that you just want to tear your hair out over. You're going to be okay. Your life will go on. And if you've got to grit your teeth and go, I can't effing believe that this is the guy that, you know, just grit and bear it. It'll get better, I promise. These things happen.
I hope you're right.
Now, I didn't get a chance to finish my statement, first of all, when I said that most investors in the stock market lose. I didn't see you agreeing. You're doing very well. Not the three of us. We are not among those. And so let's not mention Mozart. Most musicians would disagree with you, Sasha. Let's just say you're outstanding as an investor, but most investors lose. Are you aware of that? Now, would most investors be losing if they bought the American market as a whole by purchasing SPY, which tracks the S&P 500?
It depends on how you view it. If I've got 100 grand, say, if I'm a normal person, is 100 grand normal? I don't know. If I'm like a normal everyday person, I've got 100 grand saved up and I go and buy the S&P 500. The S&P 500 goes up 10%. I've made 10% of my money. Cool. Awesome. It depends on how you view it, though. Because if the Dow Jones or the NASDAQ index went up 20% that year, I could look at that guy lost money because I invested in the S&P, right? I can look at it.
You can drive yourself nuts.
You're talking about a year. Over the last more than 100 years, the American market has been the best place to invest, unless you pick cherries. If you're cherry picking, yes, you can find. You know what's been the best investment over a very long time is violin bows. Yeah.
But the NASDAQ index, its inception, the NASDAQ index has outperformed both the Dow and the S&P 500. So you could buy the 4Qs ETF, which tracks the NASDAQ.
Right, yeah.
That would have given you a higher return, but it's a lot more volatile because it's so tech heavy.
Yeah.
Right. So when I do get exposure to the tech companies, I generally go with the NASDAQ.
Yeah.
Look, you're right. A lot of people lose money, but a lot of people they don't just go and buy XYZ stock and then hold it for 20 years. Most stocks that you'll buy, I don't have any proof of this, but I believe that most stocks that you buy, certainly of any significant market cap, if you hold them for long enough, they'll perform pretty much in line with the market. But what most people are trying to do is they're trying to extract shorter term profits. And Warren Buffett, the one thing I'll say is Warren Buffett's not a trader. People always say it's, do you think you're better than Warren Buffett? The thing is, Berkshire Hathaway was an insurance company. So when he goes and buys stuff and he goes and takes these big positions in companies, he's doing so because he needs somewhere to park money over the long term that he can then draw out on if his insurance or reinsurance contracts need to be paid. Most people can't invest like that, or if they can, it's not the most efficient way to use their capital. So you're right, the market is fraught with danger. But I think that people can, read online, they can do short courses, they can learn some stuff, go to the library, get some books out,
That's
and
what
just
I
familiarize yourself with what's going on, and then try to drive your own investments, because otherwise you're trusting some other dude to do it for you.
absolutely.
Milan, I would like to address you about Mozart and other things.
Oh no.
Remember that many people told me that I am the best musician among investors and the best investor among musicians. And you know what? If you want to make it even more interesting, I will add that I'm the best chess players among
Yes, there you
and
go.
musicians. You can come
I
on.
just want the viewing audience to know that when Keel says dead, he means Z. I also remember specifically thinking that when the NASDAQ hit 5,000, I would be comfortable. The NASDAQ is over 18,000 now. The S&P is closing in on 6,000. These are record-setting numbers. When we get down on, I would answer Milan's question about the average investors. Many people think they're better investors than they are. So self-assessment and self-discipline is some of the keys. When you think you're smart and can do, selling puts is the right way to go or something like that, often you get punished because you're not that smart. And I know that the inside money is going to be in on investments before I even hear about them. This type of thing, you have to know your limitations. So I back sectors, I follow sectors. And when I think a sector is going to do well, is poised to do well, I look for the best companies in those sectors. And so that's been my strategy. And I stick to what I know, and follow that. And then, so it's a sense of discipline, and it's paid off over a course of 30 years of investing. So, I'm not going to say just because most people lose money, I shouldn't invest. I'm going to say my investment track record tells me to keep investing, stay invested in the market. It's paid off extraordinarily handsomely for me. And just by the numbers, looking at the progress over the course of my lifetime, my investment lifetime, it's been astonishing.
You're an exceptional individual, James. For instance, how many chess players play chess at your level? Close to 0%, right?
Well, not zero, but it's a non-zero number, that's for sure.
but man, I think a lot of people, so I was looking at being an options market maker at one point, and I put a lot of effort and money actually into this. And at the end of it, I went, oh, what the hell? Why am I bothering to do this? This is crap. And the reason why I was going down that path in the first place was because I sort of fell into the same trap as I think a lot of people do, which is that there's inside info, that the people who are in the know, the high frequency traders, all this stuff. And you think, oh, okay, well, I should go and set up a high frequency trading firm then. I'll go and do that. The grass isn't necessarily greener on other sides. And I can tell you now, obviously I've got a little bit more behind me now. A lot of the times I get, calls from private banking, and they go, hey, we've got this structured product. It's a strip of options against XYZ, whatever. XYZ. And they say, what do you think? And I look at it and go, I could do this my bloody self. And then I think, well, actually, for the couple of points it's going to cost me, you go and do it. Yeah. I can just sit back, and so I can sit back and watch my portfolio, but I can be a lot more selective because I know what they're doing and I know what I can do. And I can sit there, and sometimes just for convenience, go, have it, take it. So again, I think that people, they do need to take some control and pay attention. And I think I'm not trying to rain on your parade there, but I think that the idea of just buying an index, I agree with you that over the long term that works really well. And that's not a bad strategy. If you've got kids that you want to send to college, you put the money into you put the money into there, you wait till they turn 20 or however old they go when they go to college, and you've got a nest egg there to help them out with. 21. But I think for most people who are watching this show and people that are actually interested in the markets, they want something that's a little bit more than just the normal market returns.
That's right.
Many times I was about to buy S&P index, and I couldn't press the button. I just couldn't. I press the button. Okay, it will go down. So now I'm in the red, and I have to sit there until it will go higher. So okay, then I sell. And what did I get for my struggles? Nothing really. So I could never do it. But I'll tell you when I'm going to buy index. When I will be, God forbid, fully incapacitated, and I will be lying on a hospital bed, and I will not be able to do any trading, I will invest in index funds.
You're right. It takes no time. Right? It takes no time and gives the best returns unless you cherry pick the S&P. The American market has been the best market for over 100 years. And so Confucius said, study the past if you will define the future. The best returns for over 100 years, the American market, probably going to be better than the Albanian market next year and 2 years from now and 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And a very long time from now.
I wouldn't bet against Albania because Kim, she was recently in Albania and she's so impressed with Albania, and she says that the country is booming and everything is going up. I think Albania could do quite well, actually.
Good.
I think a lot of the former Soviet countries as well that are now part of the European Union will actually experience a lot of growth because cheap wages, et cetera, et cetera. So you're seeing a lot of offshoring from other European Union countries. Just for the S&P 500, one of the reasons I love trading that and the NASDAQ, and actually the Russell 2000 as well, I will sometimes trade that, and the Dow, but those indexes, one of the things with it, deep liquidity on the option series. I like that. I want liquidity. So that means that I can take some pretty big positions. And again, look, most of the positions I'll take will be on my personal account between 1 and 5 million. Now, remember, this is leverage. It's not my money. I won't tell you how much I've got on, but let's just say $1 million position might only be 50 grand of my money, but it's $1 million notional position. So deep liquidity I want, and you can also then pairs trade different things, and you've got that flexibility. So for me personally, because of the size of the positions that I take, I do look for the liquidity. And I don't want to repeat myself again, Milan, but look, if I was to 20 years ago when I started in finance, just go and buy the index and sit back, that's fine, but what am I supposed to do in the meantime? Just sit around and watch TV? I mean, people, I think, they've got a bit more time on their hands and they should pay attention to those things. And if you did do that, by the way, you'd miss out on Snowflake that I traded a few years ago. You'd miss out on Netflix that I made 800 grand on that stock in one bloody night back in 2020. You miss out on all these other companies and the IPOs and Sasha's favorite Nvidia. You miss out on all that stuff because you're saying, I don't want to take any risk at all. And I think that, look, you have to take a bit of risk to get a return. So keep yourself safe, but don't keep yourself that safe.
Yeah, you can't overstate the importance of liquidity. I always tell people the first investment should be in yourself. Buy a home.
Yeah,
but homes are not liquid. So,
if you have a lot of time on your hands because you bought the American market as a whole, you're just going to sit back and have a lot of time on your hands. What are you going to do with your time? The best way to give your life meaning is to help somebody. And
oh my goodness, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
that's been my experience.
Even helping an old lady across the street will give you life meaning. Now, people, for example, in the healthcare professions, like I was in before retiring, gave their life meaning by helping people all day long as a part of the job. The problem arises when they retire and have all that time on their hands. And one of the best ways to deal with that time in a way that will give your life meaning is to volunteer. And you can volunteer in music houses and in a million places that's very worthwhile that will give your life meaning. So that's the answer to your question about what am I going to do?
Well, I don't quite think that's what I meant, but I absolutely agree with you. And I can tell you that after I made more money in 2020 between January and March of 2020, I made more money than I've made in the rest of my life combined, including since then. Okay. Wow. So that was absolutely huge for me. And then obviously we sold the financial services companies that I had in Switzerland and Liechtenstein. And yeah, we're sitting around going, we're just going to trade for what we can do with ourselves. So I actually did join some NGOs. I've been to the United Nations in New York a couple of times, been to Africa. I've supported an orphanage over there. Like I have actually done all those sorts of things. So I'm not by any means suggesting people should be selfish, but what I'm trying to get at is the idea that it's too much work to trade. And so therefore you should just by an index. I totally appreciate where you're coming from. I really do. And I think for people that don't have many other options available to them, that's not a bad idea. Charities and different groups like that, not a bad idea. Just take broad-based exposure to the markets. But there are a lot of things out there, as I said, with exchange-traded funds. There are a lot of different avenues out there that you can use. There's the S&P Buy Right Index. I don't particularly like it very much, and I don't think it performs as well as the broad-based index a lot of the time. But there are a lot of different things that you can do, and I think being slightly more active. And look, slightly more active doesn't mean that you're trading every day. Right. It might mean that you're putting positions on and you have a look at them once a month, right? It might mean that you set trade alerts and you just look when your trade alerts go off and you just have a quick glance at your position when you come home from work and see what's going on. The other thing that I was saying, it's not so much of an issue for Americans, but for people and Canadians, but for people outside, don't feel as though you've got to rush to America. So I love options trading, and I see people here in Australia and they go, well, the options, market, the biggest market's America. And I'm like, don't be an idiot. Trade the Australian market. You're here. You're going to see these companies on the news every day. These are the companies that you interact with every day. Stay here, cut your teeth, then go to America. So if you're in the UK, stay to the UK companies, then go to America once you've got the experience. And if you're in America, start with America and then stay with America.
Okay, I appreciate everybody for their input in today's program. Thank you, everybody. Mark, do you have any questions?
No, I just was going to say something, and it was actually letting you know that it was time to wrap up. But I was also going to bring up a point that you brought up yesterday, so I'm glad Milan brought this topic up and really quickly. And this is kind of where I disagree with you, Sasha, because you gave the impression yesterday that all investments have to be financial investments. I think we were talking to that peace activist and everything, and I am of the opinion that you can do investments that are not always necessarily for financial gain, whether that's the volunteering that Milan was talking about or whether that is other types of investments. So that's just where I was going to come on, because I did hear his talk about the need for volunteers. And yes, I do know everybody wants to make money, but I think that you can have investments, including investments in projects that you are wanting to invest in because of their cause that they are tied to. I think they call it social impact investment, if I'm remembering correctly. I think that's the term that is used and everything. So there is investment. It isn't always financial investment.
And when you
there's another type of
investment,
investment that meets that criteria where you may not actually get a return and it could be very costly. It's called marriage, but I won't.
That's very true. That is very true.
And in some countries, you can have more than one marriage at the same time.
oh my goodness, no.
I don't think I'd be able to handle more than one, seriously.
Well, me and Shaquille's, I think, in his 40s. I'm in my 60s and haven't had that marriage yet. I know that the other three of you have and everything. And I can tell you that if it ever happens to me and all along those lines, it's going to be one and done. My brother did it a couple of times. He's heading to his third time. But, yeah, I think I'm going to be on that one and done club because I don't know that I could put up with more than one, and they probably could have put up with me more than once as well.
Right. As soon as I find the right girl, I'm going to ring Berkshire Hathaway, ask for a put option insurance contract over her, and I'll be right.
I can tell you that one thing in my life that I've succeeded is my marriage. When I met Nava, she would wipe me out in blitz chess, 10-0, sometimes 9-1. And during so many years, I knew that she will leave me if
get better
so easily. And I started to study chess, and I started openings, and I was practicing and so on. It was before internet, of course, so it wasn't so easy. And eventually now, she beats me occasionally 6-4. Sometimes it's 5-5. So I've succeeded. She didn't leave me, and now I can play on equal terms with her. So I'm
she maybe is such a loving woman, which I know she is. Thank you for that gift that you gave her when I was in Toronto. Maybe she loves you so much she's going easy on you.
Yeah.
So you implied that she's letting him win?
Wait a second. We played in.
He throws them a bone now and then.
We played in the last few months. We played in May in Collingwood, a tournament that Milan is organizing, and Nava was second. She scored 4 out of 5. And I shared third with 3.5 out of 5. So I was very, very, very close. So I took third and she took second.
We hope to see you there next year too, Sasha.
Yeah, absolutely, Milan. We're planning to come in May for your wonderful tournament. Shaquille, if you will be in Canada, you will have to visit that lovely place.
And when you
What
do
I-
make money, you can help out people that are less fortunate. For example, I help out Milan's tournament.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the charity that's been shown to me by Sasha and by Jim for writing that book, and Sasha by you telling me, Jack, you're one of the most aggressive chess players I've seen. You must infuriate the people that are at your level, and I do. They call me all sorts of names because of the way that I play. Now, you and Jim will be able to. Well, you already know how I play, but Jim, you'll laugh at me and just go, "That's very aggressive and stupid," but it's good for my level of playing. Okay. But I did actually finally beat my uncle. Nobody in our family has ever beaten him. He's a chess champion. He's a grandmaster. I think he's 2300 or something.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
and I finally, and you know what I did? I took Sasha's advice. I studied my opens. And the other thing I did, Jim, was I cheated so much because I found out what his name was on chess.com. And I studied his games and I knew exactly how he liked to play. I know it's not. And I sat there and I said, right, what is the best counters? And I thought, that's not going to work because he's too smart. So I tried to do what I always try and do, is to find the most obscure counter lines that people just aren't expecting. And because they're not expecting them, they don't know them. And so that was how I got my edge and ended up beating him 5 games straight.
Shaquille, is it true to say that most people, you're still playing King's Gambit, right?
I've started expanding some of my other opens, and I think my weak open is on the black open. I don't really know what to do, so I'm playing around King's India and a few other things. But see, what's his name? The world champion, meant to make his name all of a sudden. He came out the other day and said, he came out the other day and he goes, bloody King's Gambit, I'm so sick of this rubbish. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll switch to something else. But I think for my purpose, King's Gambit looks good. The London system looks good. But for me, I like to have these aggressive opens that are dangerous for both sides because generally speaking, I'm going to beat people doing it. But when I'm playing with you guys, I'm 1,700, maybe lucky if I'm lucky, right? So when I'm playing, that means I'm going to beat most people, but I'll beat probably most club champions.
Yeah.
But when I'm, with people that actually know what they're doing, my game looks beautiful and then it just collapses.
Shaquille, would you agree that most people who play King's Gambit, they are definitely in the Trump's camp?
They might be in Trump camp and everything, but Sasha,
I actually don't know anybody who plays the King's Gambit except for me. I'm the only person I know that actually plays King Gambit. I don't know anybody who likes the open.
No,
Queen's Gambit is a different story.
quickly, and then we're going to have to end the show. And all along those lines, which is the real reason I popped in and everything.
Thank you so much again for a lovely
Thank you,
show.
Sasha.
Yeah,
We can hang backstage if you want to.
Really
I
quickly,
hope to
Sasha,
have a wonderful show next week, next Wednesday. Market is closed on Monday. So
It won't be a typical Wednesday then.
Tuesday, it's going to be difficult Wednesday, but we will succeed.
We'll
Good
get
luck
out
to
of that
everybody.
mode and
Have a
everything.
great
Just really quickly to tease you, there is a conference tomorrow and Friday because that's why I had to run off to a meeting after World Edition that is actually people that are in the social work field. So Milan, they're actually in your field of like health and social work, but they also want to get wealthy. So for the second year in a row, and I'm helping them with as a virtual producer, they're doing this social work wealth conference. Last year they had Stedman Graham. They've got some other speakers on this year, but they realized that even though they're in the social work field, they want to make some money. So they're going to have a conference for the second day on how to make money, even though they're in the social work field.
Good luck, Mark. Excellent. And thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next Wednesday, same place, same time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.